Good evening. Welcome to the City of Opa-locka virtual workshop. We called this workshop on a weekly basis since COVID-19 started, so that we can get the latest updates from staff and administration. Us as the commission can discuss the issues going on with COVID-19. Last week, we decided to make it a little more open because of other pressing issues that the city must be facing. So today we're going to talk about a number of things. Madam Attorney, could you state the emergency protocols that govern this meeting?
Sure. Pursuant to Executive Order number 20-69 issued by the Office of Governor Ron DeSantis on March 20th, 2020, municipalities may conduct meetings of their governing boards without having a quorum of its members present physically or at any specific location, and utilizing communications media technology such as telephonic or video conferencing as provided by Section 120.54(5)(b)(2) of the Florida statutes. The members of the commission, the City Commission appearing remotely for this meeting are Vice Mayor Davis, Commissioner Bass, Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Kelly, and Mayor Paget. An opportunity was given to the public to email the city clerk prior to the workshop. The city clerk will state for the record at the appropriate time whether there have been any questions, comments, concerns on the items you will hear on this evening's meeting agenda. This meeting is being streamed live at www.youtube.com/user/City of Opa-locka.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. Madam Clerk, you do roll call.
Commissioner Bass?
I'm here.
Commissioner Burke?
Here.
Vice Mayor Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Kelly?
Present.
Mayor Paget?
I'm here. Commissioner Kelly, could you do invocation?
Our Father and God, we thank you for all of your many blessings. We thank you for life, health, and strength. We thank you, God, as we come together. Give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Do those things which are pleasing in your sight. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Chief, could you do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have one.
All right, you may proceed. Or could you state the public comment procedures and then go into public comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So the public had an opportunity to submit their comment ahead of the meeting via email to publiccomments@opalockafl.gov. Comments submitted by members of the public by email will be read into the record during the meeting as long as they provide the comments by the deadline, which is 2 hours prior to the scheduled meeting time. Comments received after the deadline will be kept for the record but will not be read during the meeting. There is another opportunity for the public to provide comments via a pre-recorded message by calling 786-618-2636. Messages submitted cannot exceed 3 minutes. All pre-recorded messages submitted by members of the public via telephone will be played during the meeting as long as the messages are received by the deadline, which is also 2 hours prior to the scheduled meeting time. And the first comment, Mr. Mayor, is from Natasha Urban, 670 Dunette Avenue, Opa-locka, Florida. And it reads as follows. Good evening. I was very disappointed in the fact that the commission agreed to have these workshops every week. I could agree with once a month, but to have these workshops every week for hours on hours at a time is inconsiderate. Our employees have been at work all day long, then to spend another 3 hours in a meeting is unacceptable. They too have families that they need to spend a little time with. A burnt out employee doesn't help us. I would like to see those employees receive the living wage increase. We have the resources to help make it happen. We just have to be willing to tap into those resources. Lastly, this mask ordinance is a waste of money. It's a gamble that we cannot afford. I vote no for the mask ordinance. For one, ain't nobody gonna pay these tickets. This ordinance is going to wind up just like the saggy pants ordinance. Ask the police department. how many tickets were issued, and how many were paid? Thank you. And this concludes the public comment, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Anyone, any response to public comment? All right. Moving on to the discussion items. I said we started this to focus on COVID-19, but there are a few other things we want to make sure that we addressed over the course of this time. So first, let's get a response from our manager on where we are with our COVID-19 response.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and staff. In regards to COVID-19, I'm not going to give a long protracted report because I know we have a lot to get done in an hour. Our testing site has been increasing in numbers. We started averaging over 100 last week, and today we had 206 people that tested today. I will tell you the trend with the testing site is pretty much along with the same trend of the state of Florida, having 3,500 new COVID-19 cases in one day, and seeing our testing site have 206 tests being conducted shows the urgency that our residents and neighboring communities are taking in regards to COVID-19 and getting tested, which is very, very, very important. The city is very sensitive to this matter, and we are continuously improving our processes in regards to the response to COVID-19. Our temperature measuring equipment for the City Hall will be installed next Monday, or this upcoming Monday, so we can attempt to start monitoring temperatures of people coming into the building. We want to slowly, gradually, potentially look at opening City Hall, but we want to look at, number one, what the testing is looking like in Opa-locka in general, as well as have a focus group come together, staff, key staff, and line level employees to get their input as well. The payment center for Miami-Dade County reopened, I believe, this week, or is opening next week for hours just to accept bill payments. They are not open to take payment arrangements or anything like that. They're open just to receive payments with a 1 hour break for staff to take lunch. So that is a big development that we have in regards to COVID-19. As far as enforcement goes, I will have this chief of police kind of speak on police enforcement in regards to COVID-19, what's been on since last week, and then I'll take any questions that the commission may have in regards to COVID-19 in general. Chief Dobson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commission. So basically, we've definitely seen an increase in vehicle and foot traffic in the city. This week, from June 11th to the 17th, we have provided 166 face mask warnings, failure to wear face masks, and social distancing, 136 warnings for social distancing, no business closures, and no arrests for curfew violations. Our officers continue to enforcement and education in the city regarding face masks and social distancing. And that's what we have for the enforcement as for the police department at this time.
Thank you, Chief Dobson. I would have our marketing and PR consultant, Ms. Motkins, give a report of activities for the last week.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, and to the rest of the commission. This week, we have continued to run our ad campaign on the testing site, both in English as well as in Spanish. And we reached a new high of over 7,000, close to 8,000. We began marketing the virtual town hall and issued a press release. Vice Mayor Davis did the Ricky Smiley morning show this morning, and that will air next week. There is a Facebook event on Facebook for everyone to share with their constituents for Saturday the 27th. We have launched a new series, We Are Working for You, showcasing the staff at the city of Opa-locka while they are working. We released our newsletter this week on hurricane preparedness, which went out in English, Spanish, and in Creole. And the next newsletter that will be going out will be on the census, COVID-19, congratulating the seniors, and the virtual town hall information. And that will conclude my weekly report. Are there any questions?
Any questions? I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. If you want to, I wanted to open it up for questions for myself, the chief, and Ms. Mockins all at once.
All right, is your report completed?
Yes, sir.
All right, so the floor is open for any questions, comments for the manager and those that reported.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Burke.
Ms. Mockins, you said there's an event on Saturday?
Saturday, June the 27th at noon. It's next Saturday. It's a Facebook virtual town hall.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor,
Vice Mayor Davis.
thank you. I just want to say thank you to Ms. Markins. The interview this morning went great. Also reiterated, testing and its importance in our community, as well as, gave a summary of what our residents could expect at the upcoming virtual forum. So again, thank you for that opportunity. And also thank you for, helping us communicate our message to our community and the greater Miami-Dade community. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Manager and Chief and Ms. Mockins. Let's move on to the ordinance relating to face masks and face coverings. As many are aware, over the past almost 6 weeks, we have been debating about putting in place a mask ordinance within the city of Opa-locka, where we will require people to wear a mask if they're out in public. So we've been getting a lot of feedback from residents. We have feedback from on the commission, staff, trying to figure out how to make this work within the city of Opa-locka. And it looks like we are getting close to the end. I know that there was a survey put out relating to this. Someone want to give the results of that survey? Yeah, just state that for the record since it went out.
Mr. Mayor, I'll allow Ms. Mockins to do that. Ms. Mockins.
Okay, let me pull it up. So immediately after the COVID-19 workshop, a survey went out on Facebook to garner a true sample of the residents. And because the survey was administered online, there was an honor system, so there was no qualifying question as to whether or not those respondents to the survey actually were residents of Opa-locka. To have a true sample size of the population, we needed 96 responses. That would yield a 95% accuracy rate, as well as a 10% margin of error. So the actual question that was asked of the survey responders was translated in English, Spanish, and in Creole. And the question read as follows. The city of Opa-locka is proposing an ordinance requiring residents to wear a face mask when outside of their home. Are you in favor of this? So there were 88 responses in English, 61 individuals responded yes, 19 responded no, and 8 responded maybe. Spanish speakers, 28 responded yes out of 41. There were 11 who responded in Spanish no, and 2 who responded no in Spanish. In Creole, there were 35 responders. 22 said yes, 11 said no, and 2 said maybe. Those are the findings.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So today we're looking to try and finalize our proposed amendments to this mass ordinance, and also to review the fiscal impact. We did receive more of an understanding of what it will cost the city in order to do this, and how it will be implemented. So I would like to get the manager to go through that, and then let's go into this amendments. Actually, let's do the amendments first. Let's do the amendments first, just to get that out the way, because I think that's a quick conversation, and then we'll go into the details of implementation. So I'm going to share the screen now. I have it, the draft up. All right. And for those that are watching, this is the basic ordinance that we have here. And we have a few amendments we were debating about to try and finalize. Number one was the age. A few weeks ago, we basically agreed that children 5 and up should wear it. So we have on here, based upon this language, age 4 years, or people over 4 years old can medically tolerate. Just to reaffirm for my colleagues, is that we're good with that? Any nays? Okay. All right. The other thing, what we did not go into was the exceptions. As you can see here, there are exceptions. It says 2 years. It was 2 years above, so 2 years below here. And what it's 2 years here. So I'm thinking this will also be changed to 4. Any serious no's to that? Because that was 2. All right. So we got that. Well, Madam Attorney, Attorney's Office, you can note these.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, there is a slight a typo in paragraph G that you're going to look at next, and it should be the word whether to terminate. It should be, it's misspelled. This is an earlier version, so I will make that correction. I just wanted to point it out.
Okay. All right. So the other debate we had is that when does this actually terminate? And this is in effect for a rest. A matter. Yeah, I'll go to that in a moment. When will it be terminated? And we decided we wanted to do something around the emergency order that the Miami-Dade County put in, where they are encouraging people to wear masks during this time. However, due to the fact we can't tie it to an emergency order, this was what was proposed. So pursuant to a section, declaration of emergency may be declared either by the city or Miami-Dade County. A declaration of emergency may be terminated by the city at any time or by Miami-Dade County. In the event an emergency declaration is terminated by Miami-Dade County, the city's emergency state shall continue for a period of additional 10 consecutive days, during which time the city commission shall meet to determine whether to terminate the emergency declaration or to continue to require a face covering for an additional period of time not to exceed 60 days. Does anyone have an issue with that language? All right, so we'll move on from there. The next thing is the actual fee. We brought it down. I think it was from 250 to 100, 150 to 200. And I know that there was concern about the 200 or even just the fee structure. So I think it was Commissioner Kelly that brought that up. But if so, what proposed changes we want to have to this? Anyone reflected on this and wanted to make any changes?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I think the original ordinance had the third time offense at 250, and I think the discussion at that time was that that amount was too high. So the
Okay.
proposed, I guess the proposed change will be to bring it down to 200, or if the commission wants a different amount there.
Okay. All right. All right. So I'm hearing nothing. So I guess there's no issue with that amount, with those amounts.
Mayor Paget,
Commissioner Bass.
my thoughts are, this is necessary. And at this point, it's becoming frustrating for me because we as residents of the city of Opa-locka has to take responsibility for our own lives, of course, with the help of the commission, and to see the pushback that we're getting because we're trying to protect our residents is very, very, very frustrating to me. With that being said, I know we're using the dollar amount as a deterrence from not wearing the mask or the face coverings. I will propose that we drop the 200 to maybe 175.
Okay.
Just a thought. Thank you.
I'm $100 each time will work for me. I don't know if a scale is needed, but that's what. Yeah, I'm more in favor of. Just make it flat. Everybody know if you don't got your face mask, it's gonna cost you $100. So that's what I would propose.
If I may, that would work for me also.
Okay, cool. Anyone else on that?
That works for me too, Mr. Mayor.
All right. So yeah, we'll just make it $100 each time, and that's just what people got to deal with. All right. And the last piece is the become effective, and I guess this speaks to the proposal by the manager. The other thing is two other things that actually came to mind, and that, as people have known, we have had one of the largest spikes in Florida since this coronavirus has hit. And now we have a single day high, I believe it was yesterday, of over 3,000 cases. So this is very important, and we know this isn't going away. And there have been studies after studies that says that face masks basically can significantly reduce the infection rate for COVID-19. So two of the things that I was trying to figure out when reviewing this in detail is when it's declared. And right now it says that when a pandemic, and I don't know, Madam Attorney, if we need to specifically state a respiratorily transmitted pandemic, so that it doesn't get triggered for any emergency. It's during respiratory transmitted infections.
We can certainly add that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And then the other thing is whether or not do we want to, and it's to the rest of my sponsors, do we want to make it just completely everybody, once you outside of your home in public places, you got to wear a mask? Or is it when you're a mask within 6 feet of someone? And whether or not, and I rely upon the manager in chief to whether or not that may make it a little stickier too in terms of enforcement. But the biggest thing is when you're within 6 feet of someone that you should have a mask on, just period. So right now it just says anybody, whether or not they're 6 feet or not. But I was wondering if that may be something my colleagues or anybody think would be a good modification. It's not serious, but that's what I was just thinking.
Mayor Paget,
Commissioner Bass.
to simplify the way we just did before, I would propose public spaces, period.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. No one else then? All right, then that sounds good, Commissioner Bass. All right. So with that, then let's move on to the manager report on the fiscal impact and the effective date.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, before you move on.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Burke.
On this, you know, that survey said nothing about the city fining people for not wearing a mask. So if you were going to put a survey out like that, all the information should have been in the survey. Not just ask, do you prefer a mask, yes or no? But all the information should have been in the survey. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, Mr. Manager. Hold on, let me see. Mr. Manager, are you there? Oh, we can't hear you. You need to put your mic on.
I was muted. I will, the fiscal impact portion of the face mask ordinance was prepared by a committee of individuals, myself, the budget administrator, the financial consultant, and the chief of police. And Ms. Lazier will be presenting the financial impact portion for the face mask ordinance.
So good evening, everyone, Mayor, commissioners, and the public. The manager requested that we create a committee to discuss the cost benefit analysis of the mask ordinance. And so we met on Tuesday of this week to kind of discuss some of the assumptions and different options available for trying to roll out a program such as this. And so we narrowed it down to 2 scenarios. I believe there was a memo that was circulated that our budget administrator prepared with everyone's perspective and ideas, and that was circulated to the team. And within it, it outlined 2 different processes. One option was is whether or not we decided to go with the county to manage the program for us, and the other option is whether or not the city decided to administer the program, and we outlined the pros and cons within that. One of the issues with the county managing the program is that it would take at least 3 months before it could actually be implemented. We were not able to get a lot of data if the county was able to administer the program. So I think with this being such a very new thing, it's not like we had a lot of historical data that we could go to as a reference to come up with some numbers. So we really did not get a lot of data or anything for implementation if we did go to county route, but it would take almost 3 months to be able to implement. The other option where we were able to get some data is if the city tried to administer the program. And I can share with you a chart that we prepared. Let me share my screen. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so here is where, we started to brainstorm and think about what would it cost to really implement. I think last week when we had the meeting scheduled, initially, when the manager was brainstorming, we thought perhaps there'd be 3 FTEs, so 3 personnel on the project to help to administer. But when we brainstormed this week, we determined that we would initially start with 1 FTE. And based on the cost analysis for that person, we had estimated about 60,000 for that person to be able to roll out the program. And that person would be someone that would be full-time. Here we just went a little bit more granular in terms of being able to provide employment taxes for that person, the benefit costs associated with having a full-time person, and that's what you see in the first 3 line items. The next, first 4 line items actually. We also had our IT director, Mr. Rodriguez. He did some research to see if we could utilize our existing software and perhaps do an add-on to the software. And he came up with a quote, and keep in mind, these are all estimates. He came up with a quote from our ERP system, which would be about $50,000, and also an additional $10,000 cost for maintenance. There perhaps would be some costs associated with training. However, that was not something that we were able to get timely enough to be able to present to you tonight, but we did want to at least show you that we believe that there'd be some training costs associated with this too for our team. We also would incur some costs with printing, obviously mailers and scanning different documents. We'd incur some renting charges for that, specifically related to our printer. We also anticipate that we'd have some office supply costs associated with this program. And so again, we have a broad estimate here based on some of the past expenses that we have for office supplies. We also realized that if we did it in-house, we'd probably have to do 2 or 3 mailers per citation. And so we estimated approximately $15,000 per year just for that. We looked into the fact that we possibly have to purchase either a desktop or a computer for the full-time FTE. And so we estimated a cost for that. I'm sure Mr. Rodriguez will be able to give us something if we went further into the program. One of the things that kept coming into the discussion is, what options would we have for individuals? And we came up with a community service component where if violators could elect to perform doing some kind of community service activity. And then if they didn't do the community service activity, then their violation will be routed in a different manner. But because this is something new, we don't know what the cost of putting some type of volunteer program in place. However, initially we thought that perhaps HR could play a function in that role without having to hire someone to manage that process. We had anticipated in our assumptions that we would collect about 1,000, or we'd issue 1,000 citations per month, which would be about 12,000 citations per year. I believe I heard that we're actually issuing about 750 warnings currently. So 1,000 citations per month is not far-fetched, but to process 1,000 citations, if it's done by credit card, we know the merchant processing fee. So we estimated what the processing fee would be for that. We also believe that we might need a special magistrate. The current rate that we're paying for a magistrate is approximately $200. So we estimated about 5 hours per month. Again, this is just an estimate. It may be more hours, but right now it's too early for us to predict. But based on 5 hours per month at a rate of $200 for an entire year, it would cost about $12,000. We also believe that since this is a public safety program, we'd love to continue issuing the face masks. And so there'd be some costs associated with that, but we do not have a figure. Again, this is just an estimate. We thought there may be some costs associated with the county, but we did not have enough time to be able to put that together. And then we also believe just to roll out a program such as this, as any other program, there'd be some overhead costs associated with staff. So for example, there'd be some time associated with IT, the police department. There'd be some time associated probably with finance and management, as well as legal. And so we don't know what that cost allocation would be. We did not have enough time to do something like that, but we put those line items within the budget just so that you can see that those items would need to be factored in. We just don't have enough data to put that in at this current moment. So based on just preliminary item, we believe that the cost would be somewhere about $173,000 to $239,500. That was the range that we came up with. So this is the cost benefit analysis. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but I'll yield to you to.
Any questions, comments? All right, Mr. Manager, how much can this be, how much this can be attributed to the FEMA reimbursement. We can't hear you.
Sorry, Mayor. We have to look at the, I would tell you, in order for this to be reimbursable, it would have to be during a current state of emergency, as long as FEMA has this as a state of emergency. And once it's terminated, it would no longer be. We would have to look at if the program would actually qualify, which that's not an answer I can give at this time. I know FEMA reimbursement only covers personnel costs and some reimbursable costs. I know every single line item in this budget, it would not fall under FEMA reimbursement. And right now, I think the only personnel costs that are qualifying for FEMA reimbursement right now, and Mr. Anathan can confirm, is overtime costs. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, right here. But the point that's being overlooked is that the citation revenue is going to cover this cost, and therefore none of it's going to be reimbursable. Sorry.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Right now, I'm more so leaning to that zero that I see on that right hand for the county. It looks a lot better than anything to me. And hopefully that we can get some FEMA reimbursement for the implementation of it, and the citations may be able to cover the rest of it. But thank you for this analysis. It does give us a much more clearer picture. And the question is whether or not this upfront cost, and I think the upfront cost is between 130, I think you said 130 to 230?
173 to 239, because keep in mind, everything wouldn't ramp up that quickly, right? We wouldn't be processing a whole year of credit cards to collect, right? So we're just anticipating what it would be over a 12-month period. So of course, all of that would not all occur all in one, one.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And if this does go longer than a year, which most likely it will, the ongoing cost is around how much?
Again, I think it's too early for us to predict. We don't know the success of what this program would be. I mean, we estimated 1,000 citations per month at $100. I mean, that's a significant amount of revenue, but the question now becomes, is it collectible? So yes, we may be able to, we'll bill that much, but will it be collectible is the other question that you have to put. So I think initially some of the assumptions were that our collection rate may be 14%, but it may be as high as 30%. Again, I think it's too early to predict what the collection rate will be and whether or not this will be a profitable venture. But if we are able to realize it with just a collection rate of 14%, we definitely do well on this. It will be profitable.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Kelly.
Thank you. I didn't weigh in early on any of the discussion. Let me just say, quite frankly, at this point, if we got $175,000, even though it's not all at one point, at one time, I think those dollars could be better served. I did some further research at places that have done these ordinances, and some with not as stringent penalties that we're proposing, even though you're saying now $100 per infraction. I'm just challenged to see how we're going to recoup that, if it's worth it, not knowing if it's going to be reimbursable. I just have a major challenge. I know we want to accomplish, we want people to wear a mask. I'm all for that. But I just cannot see fronting money. And I know the budget director is saying that it will pay for itself if we do 1,000 citations or whatever to cover its costs. But I'm looking at, even with 1,000 a month or whatever, and I know some numbers we got from the police say 750 warnings, but sometimes we've also had days or whatever where there hadn't been but a low amount of warnings. So are we going to now have to ramp up this warning to make sure we reach this citation number, regardless of whether it's a police or code. And I asked him, I referenced that to the manager earlier. I'm not comfortable with putting that kind of upfront money in something, number one, that we have no idea where it's going and how it's going to work. If we got dollars that we're going to expend upfront on something, it needs to be on something that we know is going to have a tangible impact at this moment. I think if this was of that magnitude, I think you'd have seen more emphasis on some kind of penalty form of wearing the mask. Because quite frankly, you got some folks now not even, even from the higher levels are not wearing a mask. And I know our numbers are high when our folks to conform for their safety. But I'm just pressed to put something with punitive measures and penalties that are going to force our staff to have to really go out to reach this threshold to make this work in terms of economically paying for itself at this moment where we are. I support masks. It was said earlier by one of my colleagues, if I would have preferred that survey had stated those penalties. Because I can tell you when I mentioned wearing a mask at Meet Me Monday, talking about it, everybody was for the mask till I started mentioning the penalty side. And the fine side of it, that's where it went south. So one thing to wear a mask is another to talk about the penalty, because our folks, I recognize and you take responsibility and ownership, but to penalize at this point, the same folks and trying to set up mechanisms to make this work, I know we want to set a precedent maybe, and we want to think out of the box, but I'm really just challenged at how we can make this work with that kind of cost up front with staffing and some of the other unknown costs that are being mentioned that we don't know. And I recognize their estimates could be higher or lower. But like I say, even if I took the low side of $100,000, we got $100,000, we're going to take out a general fund to do something. We need to have an impact that our folks can feel right now that are going to help them. Not something proposed that may work, may recoup its costs, may get reimbursed from FEMA. I'm just challenged by that. I'll listen to my colleagues speak, but I can tell you right now, from my perspective, I'm not in support of the mask ordinance written, because I just think if we got to spend this kind of money up front, it's just challenging to me. I do understand the need. I understand the numbers being high, but I think for where we are, for that kind of money with our budget and having to take this kind of money out to start up and implement this, and I know they're saying one employee, but I believe it's going to be more than one employee. You're going to take some existing staff that's going to have to help do something to make this work as well. And so that's my concern. I appreciate the effort that the staff has put into getting all of the answers that everybody wanted. But I just think right now, it's too much for me to swallow. At this moment, I'll hear the rest of my colleagues. And at some point, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to hear the managers, because we did this to him for the summer camp, hear his recommendation on what he thinks, whether we should do this or not. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else?
Mayor President?
Mr. Bass?
Yes, I echo Commissioner Kelly's statements. I am 100% for the mask, but I don't know if I'm willing to put the city at risk financially to achieve the goal that we have. It's like you don't want to make the wrong decisions because we're dealing with people's lives and the whole 9 yards. But when it comes to basically obligating the city to almost $340,000 when we have so much more things we can do, it kind of make me want to just kind of pull back from the citation part of it. But I still know that the mask needs to be implemented. And I always say, you guys might get tired of hearing me say it, but I believe ownership is key. Taking responsibility for our lives is key. And not until we get that, we're going to always be running into situations like this where we're trying to fix something and we're not being helped to fix it as a community. Again, I have a problem with the dollar amount to implement this. When we started this, I had no idea that it will cost the city approximately between 173,000 to 239,000 just to implement. I understand that it's a possibility of revenue coming to the city, but there's no guarantee that it will be sufficient to cause the city not to be in a deficit based on the decisions that we're going to make as it relates to wearing face coverings. Thank you.
Got it. All right, and I do want to reiterate that there was a second option that was recommended by management, or the first option actually was for the county to take over, and that didn't have any costs associated with it. So we're still looking. I personally want to make sure that we explore that option first and foremost, because you're right, it's a pretty high price tag. But I'm still on the fence about whether or not we should cover that cost, especially if it may be reimbursed by FEMA, number one. And then two, we're talking about our people's lives. So that's where I'm at. But I want definitely, if no other colleagues hear from the manager about this county and also other things. What was that?
Mr. Mayor?
Vice Mayor Davis.
Yes, thank you. If I may just real quick state my point. As a co-sponsor of the item, I know the intent, which is to get our residents to protect themselves and ultimately enhance public safety. It appears to be, that we're putting a lot of resources as upfront startup costs to kind of get this program off the ground. And I know that we're looking long-term for a return on our investment. Me personally, I'm not in favor of giving out 1,000 tickets, citations per month. I know, it's with the intent of kind of like what we're already enforcing as far as warnings, and then aligning that with, revenue that we ought to take in. But in no way do I want to, even put out that sort of quota. We kind of had this problem with the curfew law. That wasn't my intent. I supported the law because I believe, we should have, limited our activity to increase public safety and make sure we're all doing our due diligence to keep each other safe. But, my intent wasn't to the law to end up in so many citizens' arrests, and which makes me reluctant to go forward with this law given the financial analysis. And that's just based on the city side. We haven't reviewed what it would look like through a partnership with Miami-Dade County. However, given the 3-month anticipated startup time, in my opinion, I think might put us a little bit late when we're talking about getting ahead of the curve and, just kind of, putting some enforcement to the face mask wearing in our community. I think we, in my opinion, will be better served by educating our residents. We have the masks on hand, we talked about doing outreach events and having our police department, pretty much distribute masks to the public at large. Maybe we could focus on that. And of course, that'll save us on the back end. I'm also along the lines of Commissioner Kelly. We got $173,000 on the low end and, $230 on the high end. Just trying to put myself in one of our residents' shoes. Would I, as a resident of this community, would I be in favor of, an administration creating a law, although it's keeping me safe, creates other financial challenges for me, other burdens. So I'm just trying to put myself in their shoes. Just kind of thinking through this, I would much rather, have some sort of financial or social support from my local government. But again, that's just my perspective. We're all here to decide as a commission. Thank you.
Mr. Manager, you speak to the likelihood of the county FEMA reimbursement and also your thoughts on this implementation.
So we're at 6:22, and I'm going to take about 5 minutes, and I know we got other items, but I will give my point of view. For full disclosure, Monroe County just instituted the same mandatory mask wearing policy. But as you all know, Monroe County is in a tourist district. their fines are $500 to $15,000 in violations. Also, it's a county government that has actually issued the civil citation. So they already have the infrastructure in place already just to add another law on their books, have their courts handle it, or their administration handle it because they already have like a civil citation section. In saying that, my concern is number one, the 1,000 a month number. As you all have noticed since we've been in COVID-19, the fluctuation of even managing the curfew enforcement has went up and down and in different directions. I think this is a program, if implemented probably immediately, you'll probably see some type of enforcement, but as time dies on, I see the enforcement going downwards, such as the saggy pants ordinance. Chief, how many saggy pants tickets have we issued this month?
0.
How many have we issued last month?
That I know of, 0.
Okay. And so this is the situation you run into. Where it makes sense and sounds practical, I do care about our residents' safety, but we have to look at the enforcement rate. And then from there, you have to look at the citations being paid. So based on the amount of citations written, what's the percentage paid? What do you do when people do not pay citations? If you guys do a flat rate, so there's no rising scale, we have to collect some way. So you run into collection issues down the line, not initially, but down the line. Commissioner Kelly did bring up a question prior to the meeting in regards to the staff allocation costs. It is going to require some ramp up of different departments, putting staff together to get things together before this one person will actually be able to manage the process. My position is the same position I had before. If we want to do this, let's enforce it through an emergency order. We at least know what we're looking at with curfew, that the most extreme circumstances, people are, it's enforced, and there's a little bit more control. Yes, it's a misdemeanor arrest, but it is a more, in my opinion, palatable item, and we already have a court system that enforces it. We already have the infrastructure in place within the county to enforce those. And that's my opinion on the matter.
Thank you. Due to the fact that we do have 2 items on the agenda and we have a special commission meeting, I want to move this conversation. This is something that we can continue at the next commission meeting. We do have it on the agenda. Mr. Manager, if you can get a confirmation about whether or not the county could implement this program, because it seems as though that's the sticking factor. If we have to pay for it out of our pocket as $170,000, $230, or $40,000, is something that the commission basically right now is saying we don't want to be able to do. So if we can get a clear understanding of that, that would be great. I know Vice Mayor, the next thing you wanted to discuss on the agenda was the staff analysis of the rent and utility program. Vice Mayor, you want to introduce that, or you just want manager to run with it? We can't hear you. You got to unmute yourself.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I asked community development to prepare a presentation. I asked staff to put together a staff analysis on the item. So through the manager, I request that community development do a short presentation.
Yeah, yes, sir. And that'll be the direction I would probably go as well. Mr. Gay.
Yeah, I didn't know it was a full presentation. I apologize.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. My apologies, Vice Mayor.
Mr. Gay, I'm sorry, my apologies for interrupting you, Mayor. Mr. Gay, if you want to proceed.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and to the public, Gregory Gay, Director of Planning and Community Development. We did a analysis looking at the rental assistance and utilities opportunity to assist with that. As we begin to pull down our information, we did look at information that was being utilized by other municipalities. neighboring municipalities as well as municipalities throughout the state of Florida. One of the things that we did discover as it relates to rental assistance is that most of the municipalities that were instituting those particular programs were municipalities that were entitlement communities, that meaning that they had a population of 50,000 or more. They also were communities that also received federal dollars directly, utilizing community development block grants or other types of financial subsidies to support similar programs. And in some cases, they already had these particular programs in place in order to move forward with this assistance. This would be something very new to the city of Opa-locka. And to be quite honest with you, I don't know exactly where we would have the financial wherewithal to utilize funding other than our general fund in order to support this, which is already running fairly lean. I did provide to you, though, a listing of other municipalities that have these particular programs already in place so that you could peruse that information and see how those particular programs were being implemented. And also, basically, we looked at the number of rental properties that are within the city of Opa-locka. There is approximately 4,000 rental units within the city of Opa-locka. And when you break that down, out of that 4,000, approximately 2,900 are more of a multifamily property, meaning that it has 8 units or more. Out of that eight unit or more number, I would say about 15 of them, 15 of those properties fell into that particular category, and 26 of the were of a larger capacity, meaning that they have more than 40 units. One of the things that we also looked at is that when you look at utility billing and utility assistance, in most cases, when you have multifamily housing, they usually do their utility billing as a part of their rental costs. So they may have a 40 unit facility, but it may only have 2 water meters. So in essence, the water and sewer cost is being spread out throughout all of the unit occupants or the tenants that are a part of that particular complex. So there is no way, realistically, unless you're looking at doing this program either through single family or through duplex type housing, where you can have a more accurate opportunity to monetize the utility billing. When it comes to the multifamily housing, that's something that's pretty much a cost that is incurred by the property owner itself and is passed on to the unit, the tenants that are a part of that particular complex. So we really tried to look at where that would be most appropriate to institute that as far as the utility billing. I know one of the things that was discussed with staff is looking at a utility billing discount or reduction that would be something that would be done across the board for all residential development and potentially even for commercial development within the city. That's what we were looking at as a potential possibility. But getting back to the rental, the programs that are already in place are pretty much on a lottery system. It's almost on a first come, first served basis. And for those people who are having those particular difficulties, they would have to apply for it and basically prove what their need is in order to qualify for those particular programs. We provided you with that information and tried to give you some type of application process that if we were to institute it, that's the process we will go for. And basically, it's not saying that it's not feasible. We would have to seek the funding from either the county or some other source, or look at utilizing sources through our own general fund to support that. So that's pretty much the information that we have available to present to you at this time. If you have any questions, I'll address them.
All right, thank you very much for the timeliness. Vice Mayor, you want to say a few words?
Yes, if I could just touch on a few things. So the original analysis that I asked staff to complete included both rental and utility programs. Since having a discussion with them, I asked them to kind of segregate the programs. Speaking of finance, they've identified, I think at least $500,000 to go ahead with the program. As you know, we're slated to run $1 to $3 million surplus during this upcoming fiscal year. So with that surplus, definitely want to take those funds and, as a commission, we all decide what we, want to do for our residents. Basically, in the city, we have about 4,000 renters. The program, as allocated, will allocate $500,000 towards the entire program. And that would allow $1,000 grants, which is how the program is structured, which is in line with what amounts other communities are doing. It's a little slightly under, as most communities are doing like 12, 14, like different amounts. So we're slightly under range of what other communities are doing. In my opinion, like I said, the utility billing should be segregated. This program, in essence, should only focus on rent. If we ought to do something, across the board, I know Commissioner Kelly made the argument that, if you're going to pay, rent, pay my mortgage. So the question then becomes, if I'm a homeowner, do I really want to front the bill of, someone who's renting in my community? So that's that argument. But then I'll also argue that, most of our property taxes actually come from our businesses. So we receive, a lot of our revenue from our commercial spaces, our commercial business owners. So there's also the reverse side of that too. You're going to pay somebody's rent and you're going to pay somebody utilities, then, business owners might want to see that too. So ultimately that's up for us to decide as a board. But as the item was presented today, like I said, I would support a $500,000 application of resources that would allow residents to receive $1,000 grants. Well, 500 residents to receive $1,000 grants. Now I know that's what, not even what, like 1/8 of, what we're really trying to accomplish as far as our renters. No city, in my observation, has administered enough funds to cover all their renters. Like they're just targeting a certain specific part of their population, and they're doing it in a way where they draw up the restrictions either through a lottery or really focusing on residents that have lost their jobs or experienced some sort of financial hardship. So I believe it was written like that, and we really target who we want to help out in our communities. This program could be done. But in the essence of time, I'll just stop here, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. It's something that we will continue to discuss. As you know, with these workshops, what we wanted to do as a commission and also as management is to really think through how this COVID-19 is impacting our community and what we can do as a city. I think it's very clear from the discussion and presentations that our financial crisis that we're currently in severely limits what we can do as a city. So we will continue on, but we all know that we are still in a financial crisis. So much of the things that we are proposing, we're keeping those things in mind. So please know that we do have that, but we want to at least know what these things cost, what it would look like to be implemented, so that we can make that decision as a commission and as a community. So with that, we also was going to discuss on police reform, but we will table that to another workshop because we have a special commission meeting we have to move to. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor.
Second by Commissioner Kelly. This meeting is adjourned, and let's move into our special commission meeting.